For 2021 came out today. I agree with the first four. Tampa 1, Chiefs 2, Browns 3, Buffalo 4. I totally agree. I agree with the bottom four, Eagles, Jets, Lions, Texans. There's one thing, though, that jumped out to me. Green Bay is 6. The grass is not always greener. When Brady left, there were a lot. It was a good year to be a star quarterback looking for teams. You had Tampa, had a B-plus coach in Arians, a great roster, great weapons. You had the Colts, great offensive line for an old quarterback, very good B-plus coach. All they need is about one more receiver. You had San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, good offensive line, not quarterback dependent. So you had a lot of teams. It was a good time to be a veteran quarterback. Same with Peyton Manning. You had Harbaugh with the Niners. Pete Carroll was interested in Peyton with the Seahawks. Their roster was getting good. He went to Denver, a good roster. This is where Aaron Rodgers has to be careful. Teams that would be very interested in Aaron Rodgers. Miami Dolphins, their roster is ranked 22nd. Raiders, roster's ranked 26th. Denver is the only one you think that's a pretty good roster. They're at 10. But it is not a good year this year or probably next to be a quarterback looking to land softly with a great team. Washington could be interesting. I cannot see Aaron wanting that deal. I think Aaron would retire. I just can't see Aaron in Washington with Dan Snyder and some of his nonsense. So, it's interesting. When you look at the best rosters, Green Bay's at 6. Pretty good place to be. Now, you don't have to love everything they do in Green Bay, but that roster, that offensive line, that running back, that receiver, those linebackers, Kenny Clark, those safeties, that's a good team. That's why I say with Jordan Love. If Aaron left, if Jordan Love couldn't win some with this roster, then he's a disaster. All right, I want to play a game, Joy.
Let's do it.
It is called, Chris Paul is one of my favorite players ever. At least in the last several years because he's been crapped on by everybody. So he's heading to his first NBA Finals. We're going to play a game called Chris Paul. Paul or pass? Are you ready to go?
Yep. Would you pick Chris Paul to take a game-winning shot or pass for another player?
I would pass for another player. As much as I like him, Chris Paul shoots 30% game-winning shots, last 20 seconds of fourth, or overtime in his career. He's not a shot maker. He often creates great shots for others.
Would you pick Chris Paul to guard the opponent's best player or pass for another player?
I would pass. Chris Paul's 6 feet tall, 175 pounds. He's not going to man up on a Luka. He's not going to man up on a Paul George or a Kawhi. That's not his strength. Now, he is, for about the first 7-8 years of his career, he was an excellent defensive player. But like LeBron, you get to that year 10-12, that's not where you spend your energy.
Would you pick Chris Paul to draw a foul or pass for another player?
That's actually a great question. I would take Chris Paul. He draws 6.5 fouls drawn per game in his playoff career. That is the highest among all active players. Chris Paul draws fouls and then hits free throws better than any single NBA player, including LeBron, including Kawhi, including Luka. He is the best draw a foul, hit a free throw player in the league.
Okay, so then I think I know the answer to this one. Would you pick Chris Paul to take a free throw or pass to another player?
I would take Chris Paul shooting 94% from the free throw line in the fourth quarter in the playoffs, highest among all players.
Would you pick Chris Paul to take a contested shot or pass for another player?
Well, this is interesting because I like Chris. I mean, Chris can shoot, great mid-range game, but he's not great in contested shots. Why? He's a smaller player. He shoots 49% on contested shots, and that's 169th in the NBA among all players.
Would you pick Chris Paul to mentor a rookie or pass for another player?
This is the easiest one. Besides the free throw question, you would take Chris Paul. It's like DeAndre Ayton said. He was the one guy that got after me, that demanded more. It was like a brother. There is no question Chris Paul is the best player in the league. If you've got a talented rookie who needs guidance or a push, Chris Paul is the answer.
Would you pick Chris Paul to lead your franchise or pass for another player?
Well, there are others we could argue, but I would take Chris Paul, and here's a really interesting stat. So you know with Chris Paul what you get. You get leadership, great ball handler, almost never turns it over, lots of assists. But this is interesting. This is why I've always struggled with Kawhi, who I think is a great player. He doesn't make others necessarily better. He's just get a stop, get a basket. Chris is the only player with 100-plus assists to 3 different teammates this season: Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Mikal Bridges. He also rarely misses games in the last 2 years. So this is why Magic, Isaiah, Chris Paul are so much more valuable than a highly skilled Westbrook. Westbrook gets assists, but they're not really. A lot of it is a little bit of a fool's gold assist. Marbury used to do this. Chris Paul literally gets great shots for all his teammates. He's the best lob point guard in the league. He gets guys on the perimeter, young and old. So Chris Paul, this is why he takes young guys, and they go from lousy tanking to the playoffs. Everybody gets better with Chris Paul.
Would you pick Chris Paul to become a coach after his playing career ends or pass for another player?
I think he will be the best coach because he's had to work so hard for his success. Some guys are just naturally gifted. Like Magic, 6'8" point guard. Not that Magic didn't work hard, but Chris Paul's doggedness and his ability to confront things. He's not passive-aggressive. He's aggressive. The great coaches, that's what hurts Mike D'Antoni. He's passive-aggressive. He doesn't want to confront players. Jason Kidd, say what you want, will get after a player.
Right.
And so Chris Paul, when he leaves teams, each of the teams he's left, their winning percentage has decreased. Each team he's entered, the winning percentage is increased. So that tells you the influence he has beyond just stats and himself.
All right, I think this is probably an easy one. But would you pick to see Chris Paul win an NBA title or pass for another player?
Chris Paul. Chris Paul's the last guy in the league that I think really deserves one. I mean, Luka's going to get one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you have to put this question in perspective with guys like Melo and like guys who've been playing a long time that don't.
But I don't think Melo ever put the time or commitment in than Chris Paul did. Chris Paul, and also Melo had a lot of things go his way. I mean, there were a lot of things in his career that went his way. It's like Chris Paul, every single step, he gets sent to a. I mean, we forget how bad Phoenix was before he got there. He had gone from tanking Oklahoma City to the losing his franchise in the league the previous 9 years. Phoenix, like now we look at Phoenix and go, it's great. It was a mess. They
were not good for a long time.
A decade. They were terrible for a decade. Worst winning percentage in the NBA for 9 years before Chris got there. So for the average player, it would have gone into tanking Oklahoma City to terrible Phoenix. He made both the playoff team. By the way, Casper Sleep 4th of July sale, bed, white, and blue. 30%.